Welcome to the Casual Shooters Podcast, your premier podcast for the casual shooter. And I'm your host, David Riddle. All right, so tonight is part 3 of what I thought was going to be a 4-part series, but I believe is just going to be a 3-part series. So I spoke with Billy Harrington, Area 6 candidate. Last night, I spoke with Tom Chesterman, Area 2 candidate, and the interim Area 2 director. Tonight, we're going to have on the other Area 2 director candidate from the state of Gavin Newsom, California, Mr. Ian Parker. How you doing, Ian?
I'm doing all right, Dave. How you doing?
Good, good. If you would, take a moment and introduce yourself.
So I'm Ian Parker. I am, as you said, unfortunately from California. Not my fault. I was born here.
Damn parents.
Yeah, right. I did try to leave at one point, but unfortunately, the industry I work in is, primarily here. I'm a software engineer, so they sucked me back in. Despite that, I think there is a pretty big, vibrant shooting community here. We have, my local club, Richmond Rod and Gun Club, is one of the biggest USPSA clubs in the country. At Richmond, I'm a match director, a range master. I was recently the MD for our NorCal section championship, the Golden Bullet. I'm going to be MD for another major PCSL match this year, and another major USPSA match we've got on the books for next year. So I've been pretty involved in USPSA ever since I started. Been doing it. I know only 3 years is not as long as a lot of people, but it's really I dove straight into it. It's my passion. It's what I do basically every weekend. I'm going to 13 majors, I think, this year, all across the country. I was in Ohio a couple weeks ago for IPSC Nationals, all the way out to New Hampshire for Area 7. Kind of really dove both feet first into the sport.
Wow. Okay. Well, all right. You're right. 3 years. You're just meeting the minimum requirements to be an area director. So before I get into any questions, let's take a few minutes and delve into that. Your career is not the most gun friendly. So how how did you find the sport and become so involved in it so quickly?
Um, well, I've had guns ever since I was old enough to buy one. I think I bought a Glock 19 on my 21st birthday, because that was when California decided I was allowed to have one. Um, so it was really, I was into shooting, but it was the same old kind of, you go to an indoor range, one shot every 4 seconds, kind of slow stuff, which was fun. But it wasn't until a few years ago, I watched a YouTube video that was like, "Hey, if you want to get better at shooting, the thing to do is USPSA." And I went, "I'm in California. There's no USPSA here, but I'll Google it. Let's see." And it comes up that this club is, it was an hour from where I grew up and have lived my whole life. Richmond Rod and Gun Club. I had no idea they were doing USPSA matches out there, or that the sport even really existed at that point. So they have an intro class out there. You go out, you take this class, and they teach you kind of about the sport and run you through a little practice stage. And I'm just instantly hooked. I think I've shot almost every match at Richmond that they put on, which is two a month, since I took that class, and that's expanded to all the majors I'm shooting now, all the other clubs in the area.
Okay. All right. Wow. Yeah, you like dove right head first right into the deep end. I like it. All right. So I've had Billy on. I had Tom on last night. They didn't know the questions I was going to ask them, and I didn't. There are no trick questions, and everything I came up with, I just came up with from what your bio was or what your responses to the Q&A were. So
Seems fair.
I created some questions based on that so we can delve a little deeper to give people a little better idea of maybe what you mean on something or whatever, and we'll go from there. All right, so I'm gonna hit you with a difficult question right up front, and I gave the Tom the exact same first question. Now, you guys are looking to replace two polarizing individuals who were area 2 directors. And I don't mean that like they're bad people or anything. I'm just they were polarizing. People loved them or they hated them. There was really no middle ground there. You know what I mean? So why do you want to now put yourself in that hot seat? Because that that seat is a hot seat.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely one of the things that all of my friends tell me. Kind of anytime we talk about this is why would you want to do that? Or like, are you sure you want me to vote for you? Like, I don't want to vote for you. That they tell me, just because they don't want me to have to go through that. But
Okay.
I really, I think there's room to do better. On the board in general, but especially as the Area 2 director. I think John had like, a lot of the things he was doing were coming from sort of the right place, but maybe he was just far too aggressive about it. I mean, he was only in office a few months before he had lawsuits
Right.
the organization for not giving him documents, like, he's got a lot of experience as a lawyer, and I'm sure he's used to a much more, like, professional or like put together organization. And we're all shooters out here doing this as a volunteer sport. Like it's probably not going to be as rigorous necessarily as he's probably used to. So I think it probably would have just taken him some more time and be a little calmer about it. And he maybe could have gotten done what he wanted to get done. But I think he was on the right track for a lot of things. I think we do need to see more about what the board is doing, to see like more transparency about how they're voting and what the decisions they're making and where the money is at and what has happened behind the scenes that we maybe haven't been able to see as members. Because there seems to be some skeletons in the closet, at least allegedly, that like Practical Shooting Insights is really interested in digging up all the time. So maybe there's some truth to some of that. Um, but as far as why I like, want to step up and do it. I mean, I think it's kinda because 'cause I'm not really seeing anybody else willing, um,
Okay.
you know?
Now I think I agree with you in that I think John had the right idea. He's just very aggressive about it. Um, I think his methods could have been a little better. Like he I just think he has a hard time talking to people. Uh, but this is the question I'm going to pose to you because they also kicked out Scott Arnberg for asking about financial documents and some other stuff related to finances when he questioned the president at the time, Ted Murphy, about them. And then Scott comes in. They don't want to give him documents. So I guess I'm going to use one of the questions I'm going to throw in one of the questions I was going to ask later now, which is you said in your bio that you're used to navigating the politics of large organizations. This is one of those topics. At what point do you say enough is enough? Because I think that's where John had gotten like, you stonewalled Scott, you kicked him out. Now you're stonewalling me, and I'm getting multiple different answers for this information that should be every board director should be able to see, regardless of what their reasoning is. It should be available to them. So, the question I'm posing to you is: at what point, in your experience, do you have to stop with the politics and say enough is enough?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think you kinda get the sense from talking to people when they're just sort of unwilling to engage anymore in whatever dialogue you're happening, or trying to have. I like to approach things, like, sort of assuming the best or at least not the worst of the people I'm talking to, and trying to have a calm discussion about it. And when it seems like you can be trading points and going back and forth almost like a debate or even just a discussion, like as long as that's still happening, then I think it's worth pursuing whatever avenue you're pursuing. But you'll get to a point where someone will just sort of shut down and go like, I don't really. You'll just get that they don't really care what you're saying anymore. they've made up
Yeah.
their mind and they're not even listening. And at that point, it's time to change your approach. And that might be take a step back, leave it alone for a little bit, try to bring it back up later because maybe they were just in a bad mood. But more often than not, it means finding some other avenue to get at what you're trying to get at, or realizing that maybe you were in fact barking up the wrong tree, and that if it's not just one or two people, but if it ends up being like the entire board is against the point I'm trying to make, then well, like if it's one against nine, maybe I'm wrong.
Right.
So I would hope at that point to, I mean, one of the things I hope I can do is make more of that transparent to the membership. Like have some avenue to tell to them, hey, like these are the people I'm talking to. This is what I'm trying to do. This is what they told me, or at least how they voted on things. If you watch the board meetings, there's not often a lot of like live discussion happening right there. Like, I mean, it's one of
Right.
the things that happens with boards is you kind of everybody shows up and knows how they're going to vote on all the agenda items. That discussion has happened before the meeting for the most part. So, um, I think the members being able to see some of that, or at least have some insight into what's going on, will either get them to say, go to their board member and go, "Hey, why did you not do the thing that all the members are trying to like ask for?" If all the members are saying very loudly that they want the documents released or more financial transparency or whatever it is, but you go to the board meeting and just everybody votes against it, like, are they going to just ignore all of their members? If they are, I mean, maybe they are, and they're going to just, that's some way to get them voted out in the next one. But I'd like to think that everybody who is on the board is doing it because they want to help the sport and represent their area. And if they're getting a lot of fan mail from their members in their area, I would hope that they would consider that.
Okay. Two things about having you on. One, I was like, well, my tech has to be spot on, or it's going to be ugly. But two, being able to talk to you about tech stuff. Now, you being a more tech savvy guy, and younger than what I would consider probably the average USPSA age, if you were to break down all the active members by, and the median age is, you're probably south of that. Um,
I'd say that's probably
wh-
fair.
wh- which is not a bad thing at all. So that is not a negative in my book. I think it all is based on experience, and you definitely have plenty of experience. But with that, with what you just said, I think nowadays people are more reactive as board members to stuff that happens in the board meetings, meaning they don't proactively get the word out until members come to them and start questioning about what's going on. How could you be more proactive explaining your stance to area 2 members?
Yeah, I mean, social media, I think, is probably the best way to get some of that out there. There's a reasonably active Area 2 Facebook page that people post a lot of stuff on. There's been pretty good discussion on there, even just about this election. But Instagram seems to be the home of most shooters. Pretty much everybody
Ugh,
has their, yeah. Um, everybody's got their little Instagram page where they post their match videos and
they
everybody
do.
reposts their
You're
match
100%
videos.
right.
Yeah. But that means that's where everybody's at. So you gotta go to people where they are. I think that's sort of the thing that the tech industry has learned. Is it's really hard to get people to come to you, but if you can find them where they're at, that's really valuable. So just, I think USPSA posts board meeting agendas on like so buried in the website. Like it's not even on the front page most of the time. Like maybe if you scroll all the way to the bottom and there's sort of
Right.
announcements section, it's down there. But like that's sort of information that like USPSA has an Instagram page that's very active. That kind of stuff could probably be there, or like I will post it there if they're not going to do it. And links to the live stream when the board meetings are happening, just it's so hard to find that. Every once in a while I'm like, oh, all right, the board meeting's tonight, I'm gonna go watch it, and by the time I've found the link, it's 10 minutes have gone by, it's already started kind of thing.
Right. And lately they've, like you said, they've been very light in the conversation up to going into executive session. So you're not hearing a lot of dialogue, and then they're gone 30 minutes later. So um yeah, Instagram. Boy, what a terrible platform for shooters, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, they're
It's
gonna deactivate your account twice a year probably, but, you know.
right. But that's okay. I'll just stay here and keep doing stuff.
Yeah.
I keep
Everybody's
trying to
yeah,
push people, but you can't.
yeah.
You're right. I mean,
Right, you
I've
know.
been trying to push Rumble and X, and man, I am yelling at a brick wall, literally. So, oh, all right. Part of the political navigation, uh, when you've talked about, and I had it down here too, was managing teams across the country and, navigating those politics, like I said. But when Ken Cobb, when Alex Costa was voted in as the Area 4 director and Ken Cobb stepped down as the interim, he came on. We had a 4-hour conversation. And he revealed a lot about what was going on behind the scenes. There was a lot of dysfunction with the different board members. He claimed that board members didn't want to do anything. Not my words; those are his. And he was a board member, so I have, I take it for what it's worth. He's the one saying it. And so, if you are elected as the Area 2 director, how do you, now you're not the at large guy, so you're not running the meetings or any of that, but how do you try to coax your fellow area directors into being more proactive on the board?
Um, I mean, I think the thing I learned from work is you just kinda gotta be a little bothersome. Um, you know, especially working in a remote environment where everybody's not sitting all in the same office like we started with COVID and it's kind of continued throughout the tech industry. I've come up with a lot of like you just we use Slack, but with the board members, I think mostly text, it sounds like from what I've overheard. But just like like pestering people, like, hey, like this is coming up. I'm gonna let you know. Did you get back to me on that? Like reminders, constant communication. I think.
What is Slack?
Oh, Slack is a like instant messaging platform. Mostly enterprises use it, so that you can communicate. Like all the employees will be in there, and you can all like send messages to each other or groups, and kind of all that sort
Is
of thing.
that information saved?
It can be. Um,
Okay.
yeah, most of the very large enterprises end up with a sort of like 6-month retention policy so that anything too old is automatically deleted and can't be
Okay.
used in
Yeah.
a lawsuit. But you can set it up to save forever. That's one of the paid features. So it that would be a great tool for USPSA to have. I'm not sure what they use internally, organizationally, to manage the actual employees, as well as communication with like MNROI and the various board members. But it's a pretty commonly used tool across not just the tech industry, but major
In general.
enterprises. Yeah,
I think we used something through Outlook. I forget what it was now.
Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, Teams. There you go.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing.
So, okay. All right. I like that because, there's always that you always hear, like before. I haven't heard it recently, but you hear about people texting and chatting before board meetings and, talking about stuff they shouldn't be talking about, before the board meeting. So something like Slack or whatever would be a good way to know that people were actually adhering to whatever they're supposed to adhere to. All right. I'm going to read a quote from you. I believe that USPSA as an organization should exist for the benefit of the shooters at every level. Do you feel that currently those shooters are benefiting now?
Not really. I think the USPSA is doing some really good things for every level. I think the classification system is the biggest sort of draw for your average shooter into the sport. And I mean, we even see just from running like PCSL matches at our local club side by side with USPSA matches, that people love the classification system, and that's a real draw. And the PCSL is fun, and people come to shoot it because they like to shoot and they like to shoot two gun, especially. But it's a much more casual vibe, and the people like they don't necessarily have to make every match, but the people who are really into USPSA like the classification system, so that draws them in. They like kind of desire to constantly be getting better and having something to work for. Is I mean, you see that sort of thing. It's like video game mechanics, right? Like you've got a goal to set for yourself and you can go for the next goal. And then when you get it, there's another one until you make GM. But then by the time you've made GM, you're so invested in the thing anyway, we're not losing you, right? Um,
Right. You're
so
just
I
trying to
think
level up, man.
right. Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. And it's great. People love that kind of stuff. It's a sort of like addicting game mechanic they put into mobile games that allow them to extract millions of dollars from bored people sitting around at home. So I think that's really good. And that's I think the best thing that the organization does for all of the members. Other than that, I think like provide a rule book, some RO training, which is also very valuable. But the main thing that the organization does really is put on nationals. And but there's two nationals matches this year. If well, there's also IPSC nationals, but there's two USPSA nationals matches this year with maybe 500 shooters. It's 1,000 people. We have 40,000 members. What are the other 39,000 people? Assuming there's no overlap in the nationals, which I know there's a lot of overlap. Like, what are the other
There is.
39,000 people getting out of a nationals match? Um, and that seems to be like a large expense for the organization, large enough that they had to cut it down from 3 to 2 for this year when there was financial trouble. So if we're paying all of these activity fees into the organization for every match from every shooter, um, I think the org could be doing more to support like the local clubs, which are really the lifeblood of the sport.
Is there anything in particular you think they should be doing differently for the local clubs?
Um, I mean, I think the biggest one is not necessarily for the local clubs directly, but just sort of more efforts into growing the sport. Um, I know we hit 40,000 members, which is a big milestone, but there's millions of gun owners in this country. And a lot of people like me who own guns forever and shot a lot and never knew the sport even existed. Um, I tell people that I've like known for years that I've shot with, like, oh, I'm doing this USPSA thing. I've been doing it a lot. It's really cool. And they're like, what is that? What are you doing? And then I'll show them a video and they're like, okay, that's kind of cool. I've never heard of this before. And it's like, how have you not heard of this? It's so exciting. If you're into guns, you should have heard of it. There's a lot more that I think the org could be doing just in terms of marketing or even just like getting the word out there. I learned about it from some random YouTube video that wasn't associated with the organization at all. Why isn't the organization could invest more in collaborations with some of the like popular gun tubers and Instagram people that are like into guns and producing a lot of content that gets millions of views. Bring those people to some USPSA matches. Try to get them involved. Um, they like to shoot too. They might get excited about it, or at least that'll draw some more people in. I think Isaac Lockwood a little while ago put out a thing on Instagram about he had some ideas for running USPSA matches, kind of like golf tournaments, having a like in order to make it more watchable, because you you put on some of these like live streams of the matches, or you watch the Shooting USA coverage of nationals events, and you know if you're into the sport, you get what's going on, and you're going to be able to pay attention and follow along. But anybody who's not a like super into it and is going to just be like, okay, he ran around a bunch and he shot a gun, and then now we had to wait, and people are walking around looking at holes and targets, and we couldn't really. And maybe we're going to get a score, and then we're going to have no context for that score, or like it's I think there are ways that the organization could try to make it more marketable, and that would help just growing the sport entirely, which would help the local clubs. I think
Okay.
like some of the other things they could do is like help the local clubs directly. They put out recently that sort of like match director's guide to like how to run a match with some like step by step things to do. which is a good start. I can't believe we made it this long with nothing like that existing. But maybe on along the lines of the RO class and all the training we do for ROs, um, something like that, like stage design principles, like how to get props, where to get props. Maybe the org could take some of that money and use it to subsidize startup props for some of these clubs. I'm sure there's a lot of small clubs out there who don't have a lot of steel. They don't have a good swinger. Their walls are falling apart. Whatever it is they need, um, like help them improve their match a little bit, and that will probably bring in a lot more people. One of the things we did at our local club over the last year was invest a lot into our matches and our props and our range. And we went from an average match had around 120, 130 people, which I know is a big match, to our last match, just our second local match of the month, had 240 shooters in it.
Good Lord. Now, okay, that brings up a point that I brought up with Tom last night. He's been a match director for a while. What are your thoughts on, because he mentioned, I'll give you the example he brought up. He's like, he got a call from a club in New Mexico, and the guys were like, "You probably don't even know we exist." And he goes, "Well, I skied at the resort right there in your town, oh, years back, so I know exactly where you're at. So I know what club you are." But the point being that they were brand new, they were small, they were trying to get established. And I asked him, I was like, "Well, maybe what needs to happen is a match director mentorship program too, where 100 miles, the example I used was 100 miles away in New Mexico, there's another very successful club that maybe you can get those two in contact with each other. And then that match, which is well established and they're not conflicting or competing with each other, that can actually assist these people to get their feet on the ground and get moving, and then provide whatever assistance is needed. Do you think that, as a match director yourself, do you think that could be successful?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's sort of well, that's exactly what we do at my club at Richmond. We on every time we onboard more match directors, and we've been bringing more of them on because we run 24 matches a year. Um, you have to first you shadow an an established match director. The first time I was an MD, I was shadowing somebody else who knew what they were doing and was like, okay, yeah, I can tell you kind of a lot of things if we just talk beforehand, but it isn't until we're on the ground and we're wandering around and we're going like, oh yeah, that's right. I do have 1,000 things I need to do in the hour before the match starts. But like I'm checking that all these target stance are nailed down and I'm making sure we're not breaking the 180 anywhere and we're posting all the targets and we're like all the little things that you kind of aren't going to remember until you're there live, or you just are going to come up halfway through the match and you go, oh yeah, something broke, how do we fix it, how do we not toss this stage, all that kind of stuff. Even for your just like local match, if you think you're running it's a pretty casual 4 or 5 stage local match, like that's important and that's part of the sport. So learning that hands on is very valuable. And I think it's
Okay.
especially if the bigger clubs or the more established clubs, can help out. That's something that happens around here in NorCal as well. We have a decent number of clubs, and we kind of many people shoot all over the place, and there's a lot of overlap between like the people running the matches and being involved and doing stage designing. So we do end up sharing a lot of that knowledge around, and that helps a lot.
Okay. This is me. I've heard that some ROs at major matches like to collect body counts. Personally, I've never experienced that. That's just stuff that I've heard, so I can't say that it has or hasn't happened. But I've been around enough people at different major matches and local matches to hear names thrown out and other stuff. Now, what are your thoughts? This is what I love about you being a tech guy, as a software guy. Is what are your thoughts on something like creating a link for major match competitors when they are done with the match? USPSA automatically generates a survey that is sent to them and they can fill out a survey for the ROs of the match. And then when they're looking at staffing for nationals and stuff, they can go back through and see ROs that have better ratings than others and pick from that. Because I've also heard of the good old boy system where someone was telling me that they have friends that are ROs that can never work matches because the match director's buddies are always being selected and they can't ever seem to get into a match to help. But what are your thoughts on an RO survey system?
Yeah, well, I will just come out and say it. I have witnessed what very much looks like ROs just trying to get notches in their belt. I've seen some DQs that were pretty, like, I don't know about that. And then even when presented with video evidence, you were really sticking to your guns a lot harder than you should have been there. That kind of stuff. It happens, which is unfortunate. And that's, I think, one of the things Troy talks a lot about in the podcast is like just get it right. And I think we still have a little bit of culture in some of the ROs of like, I got it right the first time and I'm not changing my mind. And like, or even kind of like, nah, I'm DQing you for that because I didn't like it, kind of thing. But yeah, I think um, some way to collect feedback about the ROs would be great. One of the things that I've learned working in tech is that you're going to have a hard time as soon as you introduce the human element into trying to collect any data set. If we're going to rely on surveys from everybody, you're going to get every single person who was DQ'd in a way that they didn't agree with is going to fill out that survey. And 80% of the people who are like, the match was fine aren't going to not bother. But when like something we can do, like it's already doing all the scoring in practice score and we're logging the DQs in practice score. It would not be that hard to include the RO who called it in the DQ log and
Mm,
practice score. Like make it automatic. It needs to be automatic if you want to have a really good data set you can trust. Um, but that would be right there. Like, okay, maybe some RO got on a stage with a terrible 180 trap, so he rightly had to call like 10 people, send them home. So you can't just use all that data against them just as it is. There needs to be a little bit of review of it. But I think for many of these ROs who work a lot of the major matches, because you do see a lot of the same people all over the country, um, you'll see that a lot of them are pretty good. And maybe you will see that there's a trend with a few of them that could use a little more re education.
okay. That's a good answer. All right. All right. Now, you and I disagree wholeheartedly on what's important. You listed as putting holes in cardboard at medium distance, and I would like to know why you discriminate against long shots. But that aside, on a
Well, what's a
serious
long shot?
well, I mean, 700 yards with a pistol is not that bad. No,
Okay.
kidding.
I bring a rifle to the pistol match because 25 is too much for me. Come on now.
I know. I see it back there.
That's my Ace VR gun. I made an Ace VR
Oh,
rifle. Yeah.
oh, see, that's what you tech guys cheat all the time.
Mhm.
No, I'm kidding. That's pretty smart. Okay. But on a serious note, you said we need a change in leadership to start addressing member concerns and rebuild trust in the organization. Now, this is Dave talking now. Uh, Honestly, I feel like any board member can address member concerns. Um, they all have that capability, but the difficult part is going to be rebuilding that trust. You and I both know that it takes a lot less to lose everybody's trust than it does to build it up. So, how do you go about reestablishing that trust?
I mean, I think it's definitely a slow process. And it's one of the things where
Yeah.
you never really get like all the people whose trust you lost, you'll never really get them to go like, "Oh yeah, no, I trust the board now," or "I trust the org." You'll just kind of get them to go, "Oh, yeah, it's been like a year since I really was mad at the board. That's pretty good." And that's kind of like where you got to start. Um, I mean, it's something we see at work all the time. You put out some bad software, and people are like, "Oh, well, forever that software is bad." And then you're like, "Well, no, we fixed it like a week later." And they're like, "No, we never trust you again." And it takes
Right.
forever to build the trust back up. for them to go, okay, you're not going to break anything the next time. I will take your update, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it is a slow process. I mean, I think it begins with just being more open about what's going on with the board. And we've seen in the last election, and I think we're seeing in this one that people are wanting a change and there has been some turnover in the board. And yeah, they've kicked out a few of the board members who ran on that sort of like we're going to try to bring change policy, but um, eventually all those people will come up for reelection again. And if they continue to kick out all the people that are being elected running on this idea of change and then not like respecting that that is the opinion of the members, um, they're going to just get voted out too, hopefully.
Okay.
Or they will realize that they need to start doing something about it and they should be listening to their members and behaving accordingly because it- we are and everyone on the board is an elected representative. You should be treating it that way and you should be seeking out and listening to feedback from your constituents.
Okay. Now to follow up with that, you bring up a good point earlier about, getting people to engage in surveys because even the one that was done at IPSC Nationals, only about 25% of the people returned surveys. And that's about what we're looking at with voting too. So you have the same issue across the board. I mean, I'm making a a blanket statement based on 2 items of data that I have, but I feel comfortable saying that because they're all about 20 to 25% voting across the board. The surveys don't come back very often. What do you think the org could do to get more people involved, even from the voting aspect?
Um, I think for voting, like they could publicize it a lot more. Um, and that basically all they ever do is you get one email. And I'll talk to people around the range. I mean, most of the people around my range at least know the election's happening now because I'm running, but there were a lot of people who were like, "Hey, when's the election starting?" or like, "When can I vote?" And even like yesterday, people were like, "Hey, when does voting start?" And I was like, "You got an email. You got it on Tuesday." Like that's not getting through to people. There's so many people who shoot this sport who aren't like me, just constantly checking their email because that's what their job
Right.
is. There's a lot of people. I mean, you mentioned that like the age demographic is older than I am, and there's a lot of those people who just never got in the habit, or they're just not in jobs where email is the thing that they're checking all the time. So it's not something that comes through them. That's not the best way to reach them. I think the org needs to. You got to go to people where they're at, which is what I said before. Like you need to find more avenues to get the message out there, whether that is Facebook or Instagram, or have some program where there's like monthly things that everyone should read at their shooters meeting before their match. Because basically every match has it like, okay, everybody gather up, let's like do the
Right.
Pledge of Allegiance and talk about a couple things. Like that's where all the shooters are. You can't send somebody from the org to every single local match, but you can put out like, "Hey, match directors, hey clubs, please read this to your members at your match," and we can get some information out to them that way.
Okay. Now I'm gonna throw a little widget in some of your numbers here real quick, um, because you mentioned the sport being at 40,000 earlier, and one of the questions or one of the things that I have down, one of the topics is you had the organization should work to grow the sport, and we know it is growing because, as you said, they topped 40,000. However, that's total, and that includes inactive members. When
Mhm.
I had Mike Foley on here, at the time, I think there was like 34,000, 32,000, 34, and the active numbers were 18 to 20. So I'm guessing the numbers are 22 to 25, 20 to 24, somewhere in there is where the actual active numbers are. And I feel like we probably need to focus on retention of those individuals and growing it to where we have an active number of 30,000 first, um, I know you said that, try to get some gun tubers or other people involved. What about, and I talked with Billy and Tom about this. A few months back, the org mentioned that they entered into some type of agreement, some type of relationship with the NSSF, the National Shooting Sports Foundation. That's the organization that runs SHOT Show every year. Biggest gun event for the year every year. So, and I was talking to Morgan Leonhardt, and she traveled up to Cardinal for the SASP, the Scholastic Action Shooting Program, which is for juniors. And she was up there working with them. But what are your thoughts about involving other organizations like those and maybe some others that I haven't mentioned that we could partner with to also grow the sport?
Um, yeah, I mean, sort of any collaboration is good. Um, any of those organizations that are like, as long as they're not in the middle of some PR fire and nobody likes them or whatever, then yeah, more marketing is good marketing. Whatever we can do to kind of collaborate across the space of people who are interested in firearms kind of makes it every better for everybody. Um, I think there are. I mean, I mentioned YouTube and Instagram as just being the sort of like lowest barrier to entry, highest reach options. I think there are more people who are more easily accessible by just putting out a YouTube video or an Instagram video or whatever it is. So that would probably be my first choice. But if there's not a lot of investment we have to put in terms of money or time that could be others spent otherwise to partner with these organizations, and I think that is super valuable. Shot Show is a big deal. A lot of media gets generated out of Shot Show every year. It's probably one of the event that almost everybody who's at least passively interested in firearms hears something about. The cool new gun everybody makes a video about. So if the org is there with a booth and they're getting people engaged and we get included in every article that somebody writes about SHOT Show has a like, oh, and the USPSA booth was cool, and they had this thing that was fun, or they took us to as part of the SHOT Show range day. We all shot a mini USPSA stage, and it was so much fun, and was way better than just standing on a line and shooting into a berm. Um, and yeah, that would all be great. Um, I would hope that that doesn't cost us too much money to be involved because no, like Shot Show is a money making enterprise. Every company with a booth in Shot Show pays to be there, and every person walking around Shot Show also paid to be there. Um, so I'm sure for USPSA to be partnered with them, they're not doing that because we're a charitable organization and they want to help us out. They're getting something out of it too, and we're probably paying for that.
Right. I could even see the NRA annual meeting, which is actually open to the general public, being one of those situations because that's one of the top draws as well where maybe it's worth spending the marketing slash advertising money on to have a big booth there and maybe look to have some professional shooters in there, to actually talk to individuals walking through and doing different stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that does also reach a different demographic than you're going to find on YouTube and Instagram. I mean, obviously, I'm right in the middle of the show me YouTube videos demographic. So that
Right.
that appeals to me. But as you mentioned, the median age of a USPSA shooter is older than me. So you're gonna miss out on a lot of people if your marketing push is solely focused on social media, because there are a lot of people who like get into it at that point in their life. It's not like everybody shooting USPSA is over 35 because they've all been shooting 20 years. A lot of them have been, but there's a lot of people I know who've like are much older than me and have not even been shooting as long as I have. So I think that's sort of like the overlap between having enough disposable income to actually shoot as many rounds as we do every year, and the age bracket you're at to get there is a little up, like farther down the line. There are not a lot of 18-year-old kids with enough money to buy 40,000 rounds a year. So
Right. And I think the other thing too is, you know, life decisions make a big impact in all of this too, because, you know, some people go to college and then they're trying to establish a career. So that takes care of their 20s. Next thing you know, they get married and they have a child. Now all of a sudden there goes their 30s. You know,
yeah.
next thing you know, you're in your 40s and you're like, hey, I finally have some time and some money and I can start doing this thing. So that pushes it too.
Oh, for sure. I know several people who their story is, "Oh yeah, I got into this and I shot for like 2 years and then I got married and had a kid." And well, but now my kid's 17, so I'm back and I haven't shot a
Right.
match in 17 years. But
Right.
I'm here and I have my 20-year-old open gun. Like, is everyone still shooting 45?
Had to
Uh,
knock the rust off, but
yeah, it still runs. Like, okay, cool. Yeah, bring it out. This is awesome.
yeah, I mean, literally one of the guys who started the podcast when they fell into that category. As soon as we started the podcast, he had one kid. 2 years later, he had another kid, and next thing you know, he's gone. See ya. Hasn't shot a match since. You know, life sometimes gets in the way and causes all of that.
I think that's one of the things the org could do also to bring some of those people back is like don't make them wait till their kid is 18 or 16 or whatever age they think the kid could be interested in at least holding a pistol. PCSL just added rimfire divisions. Um, why can't we have PCC? Let's do 22 rifles. Um,
Uh, all right, I'm gonna same thing I talked to Tom about was I think it was Tom, maybe it was Billy, I don't know. I talked to a lot of people. I talked to somebody about it. And that is maybe we break PCC off for their own nationals and we do just like the World Shoot. You have PCC optics, PCC irons, and mini rifle.
yeah. I mean, it's something Troy's talked about on the podcast that he was super stoked about
Okay.
the mini rifle thing.
Yeah.
I yeah, I thought it was awesome. Like watching the videos from the World Shoot. I had a slot. I couldn't make it this year. I just had too much other stuff going on. But watching the videos of the mini rifle guys, they looked like they were having a great time. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
All of them, even the irons. I mean, was it? I think Corey Shield had some
his
really
bow sight.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. He had a whisker biscuit up there on the front.
yeah.
Well,
Um,
yes. So, I mean, it's just interesting how you start adding different divisions and doing different things. And maybe it's time that PCC just become its own thing and become its own, I don't want to say sport within USPSA, but its own practical sport within USPSA. Like you have steel challenge, you have pistol, and then you have, you know, shotgun, you have PCC, you know, and you just separate it all.
Yeah, I mean, it is in IPSC. At IPSC Nationals a couple weeks ago, they had to read us 2 WSBs, and we had like, here's all your pistol stuff, and then there's a, is anybody a PCC shooter? I was like, yeah, me.
One
Feed me
guy
the
is always
thing, please.
one.
And yeah, every single was like, that's always one. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's me. I'm the one. But yeah, they treat it as a separate sport. So it has a separate rule book that's got a few minor differences. You're allowed a sight picture, which made everybody on my squad really mad because I got to take a sight picture and they didn't. But
Oh,
yeah, there's a few differences, and it IPSC treats it as a different sport. So when we ran a match with both, they had to treat it as like a separate thing. Even though we shot all the same stages and we scored all the same, and I was on a regular
right.
squad, it has a different rule book. So I think yeah, we could, and that would open the option to have matches where you didn't have to consider PCC. in some of the things that you're doing, because there's always like, oh, this is a really tight hallway, or oh, we have this table start, but the table is up against a wall. So how am I going to get my rifle on this? Or you're like, that guy's gonna like we put a target at 40 yards and he's got a rifle, so he doesn't care. He's gonna just shoot it real fast. I'll shoot everything from the back, which is not a thing. Um, Everything's just as hard with PCC almost as it is with a pistol. There's not really like it's a PCC stage. It's pretty hard to have something that is really truly a PCC stage. But that's just one of my little pet peeves about being a
I
PCC
gotcha.
shooter. But yeah, I mean, you could like have PCC only matches where we do push distance, because it doesn't take a lot of distance. I think the longest shot was 80 meters at the World Shoot, and that was plenty to test 9mm rifle.
Yeah.
A lot of ranges have more distance that they could put in there for if they had a like PCC mini rifle only match, and then they could do things with just pistol only matches. I like having it combined, just from a like ease of setup, especially as a match director. Like we're just putting up one
Oh
match.
yeah.
Like everybody can come out. We don't have to like, yeah, we have to make some accommodations for PCC stuff, and we have to like make sure all the pistols stuff is also reasonable. We're not making anything too crazy for them. But yeah, I mean, I think as long as it doesn't water down all the divisions too much and you get people too spread out, more divisions are good. I would love to see rimfire in USPSA.
More divisions are good, including limited 10.
A lot of the Hogue guys shoot just a couple hours south of me. Well, they were shooting at the range in San Luis Obispo that got shut down. But right after they added limited 10, I saw a bunch of them all come out to a match that I was at, and they had their revolvers with red dots, and they were stoked. So I think that's
So they shot limited 10 with their revolvers and optics.
yeah,
So they weren't the classical limited 10. They were literally open revolver shooters.
yeah. But I mean, I think that's a good home for them. I mean, I guess they were limited 8, but
Right.
you know,
Which technically is limited 10.
yeah. Um, I think it's good to try something like that to maybe see if you can revive a division. And also, I know a lot of people who were kind of back and forth between they're like, well, I've got this 40 gun. I don't like to shoot limited anymore because I can't shoot a red dot on it. And like, do I have to get a whole new 9 slide and get it milled for an optic so I can shoot LO? Or maybe I just get this one milled and I can shoot 40 in limited 10. And then I get major. So I think it's interesting, at least conceptually. Participation doesn't seem super high in it, but it's something to try. And at least they're trying and not just letting it die off.
Well, I honestly think it's already dead. I mean, when I looked at the first half of the year numbers, the first half of calendar year numbers, I mean, it was like less than a 0.5% of all major match participation. So I think it's dead, but I also think you don't do away with it. You just don't recognize it at nationals. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for like, yeah, if you want to come out and be the only L10 shooter at your local match, like,
have at it.
yeah, have fun. Like you're
I
doing
would
that
even
because you're
say,
having fun.
yeah, I would even say if you want to go to area 2 and be the only limited 10 guy, okay. So you're not getting anything for it, but have at it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like if you're not taking a national slot against away from somebody who's competing for the national title,
Correct.
yeah.
And that's exact great way to put it, because that's exactly what I mean is don't recognize it at nationals. We're not giving you a slot for limited 10. You can come in for something else. Okay. Now you mentioned the classification system. I thought you said some pretty interesting stuff that's a huge draw at the local matches, but I also look at it as, you know, how some people say there are gimmick stages.
Mhm.
I think you put it, I think you very succinctly described that all it is a game, because to me, it's a gimmick. Because, okay, I know people like the classification. They're like, oh, you know, I'm on the cusp of A, or I'm on the cusp of this. I'm moving up. But can't you get the same numbers from your even your local match finish. You get a percentage on practice score of where you were, which correlates to whatever you want it to correlate to. And it's actually more accurate of where you are level wise or skill wise in your shooting.
Um, I think it can be more accurate to just look at your match finish, but it's sort of your match finish depends on who won. Like it's a percentage of who won. So if you didn't have anybody particularly good show up to your match, like if you finished 95% of some B class shooter, like okay, you're not a GM because you got 95%, and that guy's not
Agree.
a super GM because he got 100 and he won your local. And I think there are a lot of locals around the country who probably don't have a local GM, um, or their local GM doesn't show up all the time. So I think having a way for people to rank themselves nationally um, is very valuable. I think it sort of serves dual purposes, the classification system, in both being something for people to push for and also being a way to categorize people when you get to majors. And I think it's sort of at odds with itself in doing that. And that's was one of the things they tried to address with the last change to the classification system was that it was not a good reflection. Like just because you made GM didn't mean you were actually going to shoot 95% at nationals. I mean, certainly not at nationals, but even at like your area match or a big level too. Like there's a lot of GMs who aren't shooting at the GM level at a major match, which, everybody has off days. I've had some pretty bad major matches. I've had some
Right.
really good major matches where I've shot way above. Like as an A class shooter, I have beat a bunch of GMs. And as an M class shooter, I've lost to B class people. It happens. You have good days and you have bad days.
Right.
But I think trying to treat the classification system as a like end all be all ranking when you get to a major is something it was not really designed for. And with some of the changes they made recently, they're focusing it more on weeding out some of the people who game the classification system to get a higher classification. But I think the main draw in the classification system that I see at local matches and with most of the people, because most of the people just shoot local matches, is that game, like to make a game out of it. Um, I don't know if you've ever played golf, but it's like a golf handicap.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to drive their golf handicap down. Well, some people are trying to sandbag it up, but
Right.
um, it's that kind of like it's the number. Like I get to move a number. I'll go out and I'll play my thing, and at the end of the day, when I spent my 4 6 hours out in the sun doing whatever, like I'm gonna get home and I'm gonna look and see if I had fun based on whether or not the number moved. And I think there's a lot of people out there like that, that like that gamification of it, and it is a big draw. So I really like it for that. I think if you want something that is super good at ranking people before a major or classifying people before a major to see like whether you want to put them in buckets or just kind of predict where they're going to finish, you should look at the ELO system that Jay Slater puts out. I think he's
Yeah.
really good at that. I subscribe to his Patreon because he does really good analysis, and his ELO system seems to be like pretty good at ranking people and predicting match finishes. I think an ELO system for majors is like that's what you should look at for majors, and the classification system is for everybody to have fun and to have something to push for.
So for all the casual shooters.
Not even just the casual shooters. I mean, there's a lot of very serious people who care about making whatever class they're trying to make or trying to push for GM, and there's a lot of people who get a lot of satisfaction about like. I mean, I was stoked when I made master and was like, "This is awesome! Like that was really cool." And I'm shooting majors all over the country. I don't think I'm a casual shooter, but I was into
You're
it.
not.
Yeah,
You're not though. I wouldn't consider, but I would say, I think the percentage I used with Tom was, I would guess about 80% of the membership though, the active membership, probably casual shooters.
absolutely.
Meaning they want to get better. They do want to level up, but they're not going to travel around and go to a bunch of major matches. They'll go to like a state or a sectional or something, but they're not going from where I am in Virginia to Rio Salado to shoot area 2. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they might travel up to Pittsburgh to shoot area 8 on occasion, or they'll shoot the Virginia State or the Maryland State or something like that, but they're not they're not investing all of that time and money, and but they are still dry firing and doing different things to try to get better, you know?
Yeah, I mean
But
they're doing some practice. They're dry firing.
yeah.
They might go to their practice at their local range and they're pushing for that. They're trying to get better. And that's without the classification system, I think those people who have that drive to continue to get better, um, I think you'd lose some of those people because they would only sort of be measuring themselves against the people that also shoot their own local. And there's something to be said for that, for picking somebody at your local that you're like, "I'm gonna take down that guy, and he's my goal for this year. I'm gonna beat
Yeah,
him in a
but
match." But it's not the same. You're not getting a number that you can really point at that's saying like, "I'm getting better. I made it to B class. I made it to A class." Or I'm 64 and a half. I really need to I'm gonna crush this
I'm almost
classifier.
senior citizen.
Yeah. Oh, so I meant percent.
I know you did.
Yeah,
I know
okay.
you did. It was
Yeah.
just funny the way it said it.
Yeah.
But I would even add to your argument earlier where, if you're 95% of a B class shooter, it's not really indicative of anything. But at the same time, if Christian Seiler is shooting your local match all the time and you're at 30%, when really you're a B class shooter, that having that B class is like, I know I'm only 30% a Christian, but I'm really a B class shooter.
Well, Christian Seiler did shoot my local match at our last local match.
Oh, no.
Yeah. We got him out here. That was the match that had 240 people at it, and that was a little bit of the contributor to
Oh,
having 240 people. But
okay.
we usually have 220, so it wasn't that big. But he showed up, and a lot of us who were like competing, like for the winning the match. I'm usually in the top 10. We were all like 50. We took 15% off of where we
Right off the
normally
top.
finished. Like he beat
Right.
everybody by at least that much, and then everyone else was just like, "Oh my god." Like we thought we were
Right.
good and like, yeah, we were doing really good. Like, nope, crushed.
So the other 20 people were his entourage, is what I'm hearing.
We definitely we got some people to come in from a lot farther away.
Groupies. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty interesting, though, that you guys had him in there. And I'm not surprised that he won by that much. So, all right. I like the way you explained that because I think that kind of changes even the way I look at it now based on some of your answers. So that was good. 3 top challenges. Trust, we've already discussed that. Growing the sport, we have discussed that. The one thing we did not talk about so far is financial stability. You did mention transparency earlier, which I've said with the last two guys, and I'll have to repeat it here for everybody. But not a word I like because it's used so often and so frequently, even with national politics, when they're lying out of the side of their mouth, that it's nonsense. So I've grown to not like that term, but I understand what people are saying with it. It seems that the one thing John did say was, nothing stood out on the financials that he saw, and they've been saying that the org is basically financially stable. But what would you like to see from the org as it pertains to translucency of the finances?
Um, yeah, I mean, like it's good to hear, and if John's saying it, I kind of believe that the financials are probably good because if there's anybody who's going to tell us that something was smelly, it was going to be him. So that's good, but I think um, what is good about them? Where's the money actually going? Um, like,
Well, and I think that's what John wanted to see and
yeah.
couldn't.
Well, one of the things, having recently run a major match, um, we made money. Like we had a bunch of staff benefits. We didn't pay the staff like they do at nationals because most of our staff was local, but we also charged much less than 400 whatever dollars in a nationals match is at this point. Like, why is the financial state of the organization so impactful for the number of nationals matches we can have when we're all paying 400 plus dollars just to shoot the nationals match? Like it's 18 stages, so there's more targets, there's more pasters, they're changing targets. Like there's more actual expenses, but there's 18 squads for 18 stages, so there's more shooters because you have more stages. a lot of the like the actual expenses only scale with the number of shooters you have. So how are they managing to put on a match with the level of sponsorship that they get for nationals from Sig Sauer or whatever other huge companies are putting sponsorships in, not to mention all the other smaller ones, S3 Carts and Barry's Bullets and all the like sponsors that sponsor all these matches, Hunter Constantine. Like they're getting a lot of money in both match fees and sponsorships that come in. How are they taking a loss still on that match? Or if they are taking some loss, how is it so much of a loss that we can't have three every year? Um, I think some of the accounting around the nationals would I think help the membership understand what they're actually getting out of their membership dollars and their activity fees. Because they're like to believe there is some good reason why they're spending a bunch of money on nationals and they're delivering value and actually they're putting a lot of this money in to make the match better because they bought a lot of props or they did a bunch of improvements to their range or they built them all new walls or whatever it was that they had to do so that you could have the nationals at that range. But a lot of these ranges have been running nationals for a long time and should have the infrastructure, and that's kind of why they get picked to run a nationals. So, what expenses are there that are eating into that whole budget? One of the things I would like to see.
Okay. Interesting. Now, I've been an advocate of a single nationals at the end of the year because, hear me out, more like a world shoot schedule where you have a 5-day match. Let's say it's Monday through Friday. So your staff is shooting either Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or, 2 days before. You could do Saturday, Sunday, and then competitors shoot Monday through Friday, which would give them the other. So you'd have a weekend before to travel, a weekend after to travel, and they 1 day off during the week of shooting. So you shoot 4 out of 5 days. You could do 6 stages a day. You could do 8 stages a day, seven, so you could do a 24 to 32 stage match, have everybody there in one big match. So you would have all of the vendors there at one time because it's also a little bit of a financial drain. And I don't know how much the return on investment is when you don't have as many shooters at these other nationals, where if you had 800 shooters all at one match and you had the vendors there, you had all of that. I feel like, especially in this case, if you collaborated with some of those other companies or organizations we talked about, maybe there could be a bigger media draw, more people visiting the vendor booths. What are your thoughts on a single big nationals at the end of the shooting season?
Um, well, having a day off where people are going to be on the range because they're walking stages anyway be a big benefit to the vendors. I think the biggest problem we saw at our match with having a couple of vendors there was that everyone was there to shoot and there was like a 45-minute break for lunch, but then everyone was trying to eat lunch and the vendors are sitting there like a whole squad would go by and they'd be like, "Hey." And the squad's like, "Sorry, we gotta go. We got another stage. Like, we don't have time to stop and look at your booth." And that's been my experience at a lot of the majors I go to. Like, you go from one bay to right past the vendor bay to your next stage.
Right.
Area last year, area two made the vendor booth a stop, so you had a like one stage off on one of the days you were shooting where you were there and it was right there and it was like you can just go do nothing, but since you're here, like they've got demo guns, go shoot, it'll be fun. So that was good. I think like ways to make it more worthwhile for the sponsors are important because yeah, the return on investment for your sponsorship of a match isn't probably very high, or at least not directly correlated to seeing a lot of sales or anything like that.
Right.
A lot of them, I think, do it sort of out of love for the sport or just to support the sport. And they general marketing because getting your name out there helps them, that kind of thing.
Right.
I think there would be some challenges in changing the nationals format to be that long. There's probably a lot of the staff that couldn't make that long of a commitment to being out there for several days to shoot and then a whole week to work it. One of the things I really like as a match director is to have as much of my staff for each stage the same throughout the entire match for consistency. So the CROs especially, it's great
Right.
if you can have the same CRO on that stage for the entire match. But you're probably going to start running into issues with people like, well, I can only work like I'm going to shoot the match and I can work 3 days, or I can work two or whatever. Like I can only be here a week total, but you need me a week and a half. Maybe with a nationals level match, there's enough people who are able to, because I know there are a lot of people who have the freedom to like they travel for all these matches. They've got their RV, they just show up and they camp. And maybe that's not that big of a deal. But I think it probably also is a little bit of a burden on some of the shooters who like I can go to a nationals match and it'll cost me 2 days of PTO. Um, because most of it's over the weekend. I'm gonna like fly out Thursday night, shoot Friday, Saturday, Sunday, fly home Monday morning. I got it done in 2 days of time off work. If I got to take a whole week off work, maybe it's harder for me to get out there. Um, all the nationals sell out though, so there are probably enough people who they'll make that the match they go to.
Right.
If it is that big of a match. I think if that would allow us to have more people actually shoot the nationals, like if we have two nationals with 500 shooters, if we can get 1,000 people through the one nationals, then it's probably worth a shot at least to see what people think. Maybe that
Well,
will push some people more towards their area matches at the level 3 they shoot because the nationals was too much for them that year. Or whatever. But
right. Well, I think too, like let's just say that there's 125 slots that are given away at every nationals. And then the rest are, they're given to shooters that have earned it, so it opens up just a brief little bit. Because I want to say at Carry Optics Nationals 2 years in a row, there was a 200 person waiting list. So even if you go from 500 to 800 people, because not everybody's going to, my point is you open up 300 more slots. Now your waiting list might be 50 people or 30 people, but it's not hundreds of people too, in addition to the other stuff.
yeah, I mean, it's tough to get into some of these matches. The
Yeah.
nationals, area 2 is the worst. Um, I
You should try the East Coast. It's hard. Like literally in 2 minutes, matches fill up.
Oh, 2 minutes was 2 minutes more than you got for area 2. I had friends who were like
Oh, wow.
within 10 seconds, like thought they had registered, like because practice score goes like it gets hit so hard, it's basically goes down, and you hope that you got through, and then when it all comes back up, you see where the dust settled, and I had like a bunch of people I went with last year didn't get in. A bunch of people who did. I managed to get in. I think just barely. I thought it was touch and go for a minute. Yeah. I don't know of a match that is harder to get into than Area 2.
Well, I'm just talking about local matches over here.
Oh,
So, yeah, that's just a local match.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, and I know Area 2 is a big draw. I mean, the other thing I track is those area matches, those numbers since like 2015, and Area 8 has gone down for a while, but it's coming back up again because it used to be it's still over historically on practice score. It has the highest number of average shooters, although that hasn't been the case in recent history. It's been Area 2. It had so many shooters for so long, the average is still pretty high. So,
Yeah, and I mean, I think that probably comes mostly down to just what they can fit for the match because most of the area matches all sell out. Um, yeah,
right.
so like Area 2, there's hundreds of people on the wait list. They could make that match 5 days if they wanted to. I wouldn't want to
Wow.
as the MD. But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, don't blame me. I wouldn't either. Okay. This is a new question that I posed to Tom last night, so I'm going to pose it to you. This is a hypothetical. So, if Dan Click Jim Boone and Alan Turner, we get off the podcast, this recording, and they call you up on the phone and they said, Ian, choose one rule or bylaw that you want instituted at midnight and it will be done. What would that be?
I think we should adopt the IPSC gender policy.
Okay, I like this.
Yeah. I think it's the number one question I've received from all over is I think the way people usually phrase it is non-biological women competing in the ladies category, which is a touchy subject. I'm in California. This comes
Sure.
up.
Right.
Um, and I don't whatever however you want to present yourself to the world, in whatever format that is, whatever name or however you want people to refer to you, like by all means, go for it. No
Right.
problem with any of that. And I think if you read the IPSC policy, um, they say that they've derived it from the Olympic Charter and that it is about like competitive equity and fairness in competition. That like certain people have certain physical advantages because of the way that they were born over other groups of people. And the point of having a ladies category is to allow the people born that way to measure themselves against each other. Um, I mean, Justine Williams kicks my ass at every match that we both shoot, so it's not the end all be all. Um, but I think that's an issue that a lot of people care a lot about, women especially. And we have, if you've ever been to a USPSA match, we have kind of a hard time recruiting a lot of women to the sport.
Yep.
We should not be doing things to drive them away if they are vocal about, like, one of the things that a lot of women have said to me is that they want to compete in a ladies category with other people like them. And everybody is welcome to compete in the open category or the overall category. Like there's you don't have that's
Right.
what the match is really about. But if we are going to recognize a ladies category, we are explicitly stating that we understand that there are physical differences between men and women. Right? We're not
Uh,
recognizing a men's category. It's not because we want to just split men and women. It's because we're recognizing that there is a difference in a woman.
Physiologically, there's a
Yeah.
massive difference.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that difference is enough that it is worth allowing them to compare themselves within their category. I mean, we
I
do it
mean,
for seniors and we do it for
yeah,
juniors, right? Like if you're older or you're much younger, you are like going to be
at a,
slower or less
at a
strong
disadvantage.
at a
Yeah.
disadvantage compared to Christian Seiler. Um, so you should have a way to measure yourself against the people in your category. That's the whole point of categories, and I think we should tailor the USPSA policy to recognize that.
And as great as Justine is, and as great as Maria Gushina is, probably the greatest practical shooting woman ever, neither one of them have won an overall at a world shoot. So, right. So, and that's why
Yeah.
it's protected the way it is. I agree. Okay. For the members of Area 2, if you get elected, what can they expect of you?
Um, I think they can expect me to tell them what's going on with the board while I'm there. That I'm going to try to be a different voice than what we've had. Not part of the sort of like sit on the board, collect your free travel to your area match, kind of don't listen to anybody crowd that I think we've is at least the vibe everybody has from the board. Like I'm running because I've seen in the last election, and the grumblings around that people are unhappy, that we need a change, and I want to be part of that. What I think they can also see is a commitment to actually visit some of the parts of Area 2 that don't get a lot of visits from the area director. I had somebody from the New Mexico section send me an email and say that they had invited a previous Area 2 director to come to their sectional. And that person said, at least their quote was, "Why would I go to that? That's You're such a small section. You're such a small match. Like, it's not worth my time." Like, that's a whole section in your area. Of course, it's worth your time. Like, whether that match has 100 shooters or 400, like, you're the area director, you should probably make an effort to visit some of those places. Area 2 is, in population and just in the number of shooters, overwhelmingly dominated by like the Phoenix area and the two
Right.
population centers in California. But eastern and western Colorado, New Mexico, and one of the places is Hawaii, which would be a lot of fun. So, and
Well,
like, taking it
I,
too
I
hard there.
right. Well, I would say the same thing to you and Tom that I said to Billy. I said it to him privately, so this is out here where everybody can hear what I told him. He put in his bio that he will not use the $6,000 travel, and I was like, Billy, don't do that. I said, you live in Mississippi. There are clubs in Area 6, I said, that would love to see their area director that don't. So don't be afraid to use some of that money to go to Homestead, Florida to visit people that have never been visited by an area director or haven't in years. You know what I mean? And I would say the same thing to you and Tom. Like, I understand what Billy's point was, and I appreciate it. Basically, he's saying, I'm not going to waste your money. And I get that and I appreciate it. And I'm not even from that area and I'm not from area 2, but there are clubs in New Mexico that would love to see an area director, and that money is there to help you guys do that. So,
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the actual tangible benefits that the local clubs would get out of some of the money they send to the org.
mhm.
I'm not gonna use any of that money to go to a match I was gonna go to anyway.
And
Um,
that's what he said. And I said,
yeah, right.
okay,
Like,
perfect.
I whether
Yeah.
I was the director or not, I'm going to Area 2, I'm going to, whatever PCC Nationals is. So I'm not gonna take a bunch of the org's money to get me a flight and a hotel room to those, but that means I can spend the $6,000 going to places I otherwise wouldn't or could go to. So if that means I can just fly out for a weekend to Eastern Colorado and shoot their local and or two of them and see a couple different clubs, or the same in New Mexico, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's how that money should be used, you know? That's my personal opinion. But okay, here's the last question. Now, to the other board members, if you get elected, what can they expect of you?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think they can expect me to come in with a sort of like assuming the best intentions of everybody and an openness to kind of listen to what I and the rest of the membership probably don't understand about why some of the things they do are the things that they do. And trying to understand that before I jump straight into like firing lawyers and getting filing lawsuits to dissolve the organization and all that kind of stuff. I'm committed to working with these people. They will be my colleagues. I don't think they are terrible people. Like, they're not malicious out to just ruin the organization or anything like that. Like, they're in it for the love of the sport the same way that I'm trying to be in it. So I would like to work with them to address what we're hearing as the members' concerns, and I think that they can expect me to approach it with an open mind and a willingness to work with them as long as they are willing to work with me.
Okay. Well, I had my notes up, and every single question has a blue check mark now. So I have nothing left to ask. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about before we go?
No, I mean, I think we covered when we talked before about the one thing I wanted to talk, and we managed to get that in there. So,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, thank you very much for having me on. I think this was great.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate you coming on. So this is I'm not going to lie. I think and it's being recorded so everybody will hear this. I think area 2 has a tough decision to make. I'll be honest with you. So this is going to be interesting to see how this vote turns out.
I like to think it's an easy decision, but yeah, I might be biased.
Just maybe that's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, I mean, I don't think area 2. this is good. This is what every area needs. So this is good, and I appreciate you coming on and talking, because I think for those people that are undecided and hearing you guys talk and explaining some of your answers versus just reading them on a two-dimensional screen or a one-dimensional screen is much better for them to understand and be able to connect with.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I think it is a benefit to the area that we do have multiple candidates who are engaged and want the job and have ideas about what they want to do. And that, like, having a tough choice is better than having it being a slam dunk because,
Absolutely. I
like,
agree.
nobody's good. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's like a national election where you can either have two good candidates, or like, wow, neither one of these is a bad choice, or like there 2008 where I just skipped the election altogether because I couldn't choose which one was worse. So that's how it goes, you know.
Yep.
Well, Ian, I hope that at some point I can have you back on and we can just talk shooting and no politics.
Absolutely. I'd love that. Yeah.
Okay, so would I. All right, I'll reach back out. We'll wait till after the election. We don't have to talk about the election, but we can wait till after then, and then, or maybe, well, shoot, maybe even before then, and have a chat.
Yeah. Sounds good. Hope, to,
Awesome.
hope I can
Thanks for
actually
coming
see you in
on.
a match too. It'd be good.
Yeah.